if you've been following my channel for any period of time, you know that one of my favorite thriller authors, is Alex Finlay. Now, I've mentioned my favorite books and my favorite thrillers. If you missed the video, I'll link it up here. But once I saw that a new book was coming out, I really needed to read it. And once I started reading it, I couldn't put it down. And now this book is called Parents' Weekend, and it takes place in Northern California and Santa Clara University. Now, these parents are going to visit their kids, and they have this kind of event, which I did not know. My kids go to community college, so I don't know how this works, but apparently this is a thing where there's a parents' weekend when they go visit with their kids and have their activities. And in this case, or in this book, we're following 5 different families that are traveling to California and that they're going to spend the weekend with their kids with a bunch of different activities that the university had planned for them. We also get a 6th POV, and this is from an agent, FBI agent, that we met in other couple of books before. So if you like Agent Keller and her family, there's also a POV that comes from her. However, I have to say, I mentioned over and over again how much I don't like a police procedural or something that is heavy into an investigation on the police side. But in this book, it's done so tastefully, and she is almost like following the leads by herself, that it makes it feel more of somebody that's investigating and not really the FBI investigating what really happened here. Now, let me tell you, this story starts on a Friday and ends on a Sunday night, and 90% of the book is on, or even more, is what happened throughout that weekend. Now, there's going to be 5 residents from Campisi Hall, which I'm assuming it's a dorm, that they will be meeting with their parents at this one restaurant. So we get the POVs from the different parents, we know who they are, and in my experience, it wasn't really hard to keep up with them, because every time I moved to, the Kellers or the Maldonados or the different families, I didn't have to remember who their kid was, because Alex Finlay makes it in a way that you're like, oh, he's the surgeon. And that's the wife. Oh, he's the lawyer. Or no, not the lawyer, but he's the judge. And that's it. It's easy to keep up. It was easy for me to keep up with this. But I have to say that my favorite style of writing is through different POVs. And the more the better in my experience. And I didn't have a hard time keeping up with them. Now, we start on Friday night when they're going to get together to go to dinner. So the parents go to their hotels or wherever they're staying, and then they see the kids, but then each one of the kids go back to their dorms and think that they're doing, and the parents stay at their hotels until it's time to go to that dinner. When they go to the dinner, you kind of get to know the parents in a different light, and interacting with each other was kind of weird for a grown adults. However, the kids never show up. None of the 5 kids show up there. And so in the beginning, they're thinking, they probably just ditched us. They're doing something, there's this fraternities, pledges that are happening. So they don't think anything of it. They just have shots. They bicker and they do things that maybe they will regret in the future. But then they go to their hotels and wait until the next morning to try to connect with the kids, because they weren't picking up the night before. But the next day, they're trying to call. Nobody can get through to these kids. And eventually, and mind you, these are all freshmen, so they're probably 18 years old. So the parents start to get a little bit more worried about what's happening when they can't reach them the next day. So the rest of the book, we're going to spend looking for this student. Now, you have to know that also a week before, one other student that was friends with these 5 kids, she drowned in one of the caves. So high tide came and something happened, and she ended up dead. She drowned. So there's a lot of worry on the parent side and on the university side, like, okay, one day is fine, but now what's happening? Where are they? And why aren't they answering their phones? Now, the first thing that I love is the multiple POVs. There's something in having multiple POVs of that same weekend that it just scratches my itch in my brain. It's just one of those things that I need to keep going. Another thing that I like is that they are super short chapters. And I have my note of things down here in case that you're wondering what I'm looking at. But it has such short chapters that they're kind of like telling you, no, read one more, read one more, read one more. And you can go through like 25% of this book so fast because everything that you're reading is so interesting, and it leaves you hanging, with each family, leaves you hanging with something, so you want to go back to that POV. This to me was not predictable, and if you could predict the end of this book, I mean, kudos to you. You may be smarter than I am, but let me tell you, I had no idea who could have done it. My thoughts were completely in a different place of who could have done this. Another thing I really enjoy is the action-packed story. Like, this is not only about these kids, but everything that's happening in between, to one of the parents, to another parent, and I'll talk about the parents in a little bit, but it was just so action-packed, and every time that you started a new chapter, you knew that something was going to happen. And it's not something crazy. It's something that it's just unexpected. And the other thing is that the twist was great. In my opinion, was great. Again, I did not predict it, and that kept me engaged reading until the last page. Finally, this is one of those books that kept me engaged from the first page till the last page. I did not have a boring in between the pages, and that counts. In my ratings, that is one of the most important things. However, I do have to talk about some of the things that I didn't like. The kids' chapters, like, in between what's happening in the investigation, we do get POVs from the kids as whatever is happening to them is happening to them. But those particular chapters read very YA. And I understand. These kids are 18 years old, and, he was writing in a way that made them seem young, of course, because they are, but I just thought that it was a little bit weird how the writing was so different from the rest of the POVs. Another thing that I thought could have been better was exploring the characters a little bit more. Like, we knew what they did, who they were married to, and we did learn some of the things that they've done and how it kind of ties into this parent weekend. However, I feel like we didn't really connect with a lot of them, and it could be, and this may be just me, that I don't like rich people drama. These people had no financial problems, but they had so many more problems that, if you ask me, what would you rather have, financial problems or all these problems? I would I'd rather not have that much money, but live my life in peace. These families were just so rich and so not the kind of people I know, or not the kind of people I can relate to or hang out with, or it's just those people that in my head they don't exist, because I don't know people like that. So maybe that's why I felt like we didn't explore their characters so much, because maybe that's who they were. They were this shallow people that had money and were really stupid, and they were doing stupid things. Maybe they weren't stupid, but they were doing stupid things. And so maybe that's why I felt like we didn't explore the characters as much, or that I didn't care about them as much. Finally, the social media element. There was, as the investigation was happening, as it would happen today in 2024, the media is a big part of any investigation, and sometimes brings a lot of leads to that investigation. Like in the Gabby Petito case, in a true crime kind of situation, that's really important. But I felt like in this case, the social media was coming from these kids that were in that same school. And again, it felt very YA. It felt very, I don't know, I just couldn't connect with that part of the book. But it really was minimal. So it was easy to go through those chapters knowing that we would move on to a different POV. That's why I never got really bored while I was reading the entire book. Finally, I wanted to touch on the FBI agent. She is really, I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like she's very relatable. We've seen her in a couple of his books, and it kind of makes sense. It touches a little bit, but you can definitely read this book without even reading any other of the previous books where she's been part of. But it does reference a couple of times, maybe there's 2 references about, you know, previous cases and how it impacted her family. But really, you don't need to read the other books in order to read this one. However, I felt like the FBI trope is used in such a smart way that I didn't mind that really we were following her as she was putting the pieces together of this puzzle. She's a really smart woman. She has a very supportive family that, you know, supports everything that she does. She's also very supportive to her husband and what their situation is. So I could relate to her, and I felt like I connected a little bit more with her because she seems more of a normal person to me. And I felt like I was with her as she was going through this investigation. Now, for me, this book was a 4.5 stars. So it's definitely one of those books that I would recommend to anybody that wants to have a good time with a thriller. This is so fast-paced that by the time, or maybe it was because I was reading in my Kindle, like by the time I got to 75% of the book, I was like, what? No, wait, how? No, something needs to no, I need more time with this book. And I felt like I could read more of these characters. I could have been a lot more invested if he would have explored them a little bit more. Maybe not, but it's just a perfect length of novel where you read it so fast that you want more. And I think that's the best feeling after reading a thriller. So if you're gonna go on a plane, if you want a good beach read, if you want something that really makes you want to come back to the book every single night, if you, I don't know, it's just one of those quick reads. I feel like you're gonna be done with this book within a couple of days. If his style clicks in your brain, you can't put it down. You really need to finish it, and I'm sure most people will finish it in one day. It wasn't the kind of thriller that I've read from him before. This one felt a little bit different, and again, it was because it was involving 18-year-old kids going in their first year of college, so it could be because of that. So it felt a little bit different to what I've been reading from him before, but it's definitely still entertaining. And it's one of those books that you can't even tell that you're reading. You're so engaged in the story that it's almost like it's happening in your head, and I'm just so happy that I've read it. However, this book will come out on May 6th, 2025, and I will remind you of this book closer to that date, but I still wanted to share my review and of course review this for NetGalley. I want to thank the publisher, the author, and NetGalley for providing me with this free ebook and being able to read this ahead of time. This being one of my most anticipated releases of 2025, you have no idea how happy I am. Now, I need to read Night Shift, which I need to order the book. I really would like to get the book itself, and I do have it on my Kindle, but I like physical copies of books, and I still need to read If Something Happens to Me. I really want those 2 in physical, so I'm excited to continue to collect his books because I think they're some of the best that click with my brain. And if you haven't tried it, try it. It may not be what you enjoy, but at least give it a try and see how you like it. I think they're very smart. I think that if you're a plot-driven person, you're gonna enjoy them. So thank you for being here today, guys. I truly appreciate you coming back. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.